people picture their honeymoons, they think about sunsets, romantic dinners, beautiful cities. 3 hours into mine, my husband and I were sitting on the floor at DFW Airport at 1 a.m. during a snowstorm, surrounded by stranded strangers, realizing that our honeymoon might just actually be the world's most expensive airport sleepover. Our trip was supposed to start with a simple flight on Sunday, Dallas to Madrid, Madrid to Budapest. Very romantic, and if you know me at all, very organized. Instead, it started with our flight out of this wonderful city getting delayed, and delayed, and delayed again. After 11 hours and lots of expensive airport snacks, the airline finally made the announcement with the one word that every traveler loves to hear. Canceled.
Oh.
Now normally when a flight like this gets canceled, you get a hotel room and then you try again the next day. But remember, this was during that fantastically timed snowstorm the weekend of my wedding, so there were no Ubers, no hotels, and very little hope. The airport started to look like a disaster movie, but instead of actual zombies, it was exhausted travelers shuffling around, just aggressively shuffling and refreshing their airline apps. But somehow, amidst all this chaos, my husband looked at me and said the most optimistic sentence of the entire trip. "This will be funny later." We eventually did make it out of Dallas on Wednesday night, which means that our travel plans had changed just ever so slightly. We were supposed to visit Budapest, Prague, Vienna, and then northern Italy. But with these delays, Budapest and Prague were merely just PowerPoint slides on my beautiful travel itinerary. I will be using that as a very good excuse to go back at a later date. When we finally did make it to Vienna, it felt like a huge win until we got to baggage claim. Now, I never checked luggage for this very reason, and Bryce and I had both packed everything in backpacking packs, like small ones, which is a very impressive feat for a 2-week winter vacation. The clothes are bigger in winter, okay? But when we were flying from Madrid to Vienna, the airline employee looked at us with that really knowing gate agent eye. She made us check the sizes of our bags and the sizer buckets that they have, and I want to make it very, very, very clear that my bag slid perfectly into it, no problem whatsoever. Bryce has got about this far and just stopped. So at this point, the gate agent offers to gate check my bag along with his, even though I didn't need to, because in her words, "You're traveling together, you don't want to have to carry that thing around on your layover, and I'll do it for free." Now, I'm sure you can imagine, after repurchasing multiple flights, begging for refunds on train tickets, and getting absolutely robbed by the airport trying to sustain ourselves for 11 hours, I heard the word free and I was like, hell yeah, you can have it, take it away. I don't need it. That was a bad decision. Because of course, Bryce's bag made it happily to the luggage carousel in Vienna, while my bag got to see more of Europe than I did on this trip. So after all of this chaos, we had learned a lesson. Travel of this kind, in the most basic sense, is like marriage and fast forward. All of these problems arise, challenges happen, and you figure it out together. This was good timing for this lesson because our next challenge came on our train trip from Vienna to northern Italy, where our first of 6 trains was delayed by an hour and a half, which means the 5 connecting train tickets we had already purchased and organized instantly became useless. So we spent each of the segment of our train buying tickets for the next segment of the train, and had officially left the organized itinerary phase and officially entered the travel improv phase. We were just going with the flow. And I told myself, this will be funny later. When we finally did make it to Italy, there was a night where we were sitting in front of a fire in the mountains, watching the snow cover the peaks, drinking a nice glass of champagne, and I realized something. All of the things that had gone wrong didn't actually matter, because the trip was never really about the itinerary. but rather about the person sitting across the table from me. And after this week that we had, I learned something even more important. That Italian wine can solve almost any problem. Canceled flights, lost luggage, missed trains, all of these things become a story. Stories that actually are funny later. Stories you tell your friends, stories you tell at Toastmasters. So no, our honeymoon did not go according to plan, but it did teach us some valuable lessons about marriage. Because life rarely goes according to plan. But if you can laugh and adapt and tell each other that this will be funny later, the adventure turns out pretty great. And if all else fails, there's always Italian wine.